that the horror movies have the most clear profile, because as you can see is that at the beginning that's what it looks, a comics, a character coming from a comic book, all made artificially. Bukele doesn't look like a president, but that, a comic strip from the funny pages, made through artificial intelligence, in this case to destroy its people, to harm his compatriots, and we are going to explain very briefly who he is. But I will say that this is something out of the ordinary, that extraterritorially he yesterday committing one of the worst actions that in a way takes the mask off. He confessed that he has kidnapped in conditions of forced disappearance to over 250 Venezuelans that did not commit any crime in El Salvador, that do not have the possibility till today to have a lawyer, of having a court hearing. And even worse, it's not that they did not commit any crime in El Salvador, but that they also did not commit any crime in the United States, from where they were deported to El Salvador. But this should not come as a surprise. I tell you this because we are talking about a renegade that betrayed the last name of his family and his father, son of Palestinian father and mother, who supports the genocide, the Israeli genocide in Gaza, openly. So imagine this. Imagine that a president who comes from Palestinian mother and father, he supports the genocide in Gaza instead of denouncing. He should have been the first in the continent to come out and denounce and condemn this massacre. But it's time that we unveil who this person is. It's the neo-Nazi presentation of the 21st century, of this modern time, where we have been able to learn from real sources, anyone can see this, that him, together with his whole family in the office, has dedicated all his life to persecute opposition figures and anyone who investigated him. But he also reached agreements with gangs to fulfill his policies. It is also known that Bukele and his three brothers, his wife, his mother, bought 34 new properties in a value close to $10 million. And this happened during his first 5 years in government. We will later see what will be known publicly of the years that came afterwards, of this weave of corruption, of family corruption. So it is about a new offspring of landowners in this Central American country, to which we have great relations of friendship and affection with its people, and that is evidence in the poet of the Central American Revolution, a real poet that puts up high the true Salvadoran spirit and not the one from this person who came to destroy El Salvador. Not only Venezuelan migrants deported from the United States are kidnapped in El Salvador, and this is an astonishing figure. Since the year 2022, when the Bukele regime established an emergency declaration to fight crime and violence, at least 85,000 people have been detained without any judicial order. What does the world say about this? What does the International Court of Humanitarian Rights says about this? What does Volker Turk says about this? To which we sent a letter and we didn't have a response as the High Commissioner of the United Nations Human Rights. What does the UN experts that work in Geneva say about this? What does the OAS say about this? They have said nothing. We are talking nearly 100,000 people detained without a judicial order. In turn, when in Venezuela, a person detained for magnicide, mercenaries that come through our borders illegally to kill, to blow up barracks, to try to assassinate elected authorities, they've all been processed before the judicial courts. But then they do say something. Then all these NGOs, all these international organizations come and say this and that. And this is truly a double standard. And the subject of human rights, I will always denounce this, it cannot be subject to this kind of action. Bukele is a serial offender against human rights in the planet. It's the clearest representation of this. He reduced from 300 municipalities that El Salvador had to less than 70, so he could get over, as the tyrant he is, of the municipalities, knowing that a left organization could have had a higher reach than him in those municipalities. The same happened regarding parliament. He reduced parliament to nothing. He was re-elected president, violating the own constitution, because unlike Venezuela, the Salvadoran constitution does not permit the re-election. So he violated the constitution. He did anything he could on the judicial level so he could be re-elected. El Salvador now has the highest incarceration rate in the planet. Imagine what I'm saying. With 2% of its people in prison, I mean 2% of the Salvadoran people is currently in Salvadoran prisons. Prisoners went from 38,000 to an estimated of 120,000 nowadays, most of which have not been condemned for any crime. So I want, in this context that is very important to say it today, we see a video that represents the massive violations of human rights to our competitors, Venezuelan competitors that did not commit any crime in El Salvador, that have not allowed to have a doctor's visit. We don't know the conditions in which they are. And we can be certain that certainly many of them have been mistreated and humiliated. And because of this, that's why I say these people are disappeared, violating different articles of the Rome Statute linked to the International Court. Let's see the video. Mass deportations of Venezuelans from the States to El Salvador.
Máxima seguridad, donde impera el orden, control y disciplina. Acá hay reglas y normas que se deben cumplir al pie de la letra. Al pie de la letra.
They are, and there are strict norms of discipline, and they're filming if they're in compliance.
No sé nada de él.
I have no news of him.
Y en esta semana pues me enteré
In this
que
week,
mi
well,
hijo
I
que
found out
pertenecía al tren de Aragua. Si él perteneciera al tren de Aragua, yo vivía allí. Yo no pasaba hambre.
Es él. Lamentablemente él. Yo quisiera que no fuera él. Que no lo
it
hubiesen
was him.
tratado.
Unfortunately, I wish that it wasn't
Él no
him
merecía que lo hubiesen
because he
tratado.
doesn't deserve to be treated like this.
Ayer, bueno, un
Yesterday,
sobrino,
well, a nephew,
primo de él, bueno, él se dedicó a
a
buscar pues, y
cousin,
hacía
he
Zoom y
began
esto,
to look, he was
y él lo
doing
mandó a-
Zoom,
yo tengo que ir para
and he
Salvador a
sent the
buscarlo.
picture.
No lo quiere entrar, yo lo busco, me lo traigo a pie, lo que sea.
And I would go look for him if I could.
Le pido a Bukele que por favor se
I
coloque
call on
la mano en el
Bukele
pecho
to please, if he
y
has
suelte a todos, porque ellos no son ninguno
a soul in
delincuente.
his heart, to release them all because they are not criminals.
Pedimos a las autoridades competentes,
We
a
call
la
on
ONU,
the
que se
pertinent
una, por
authorities
favor, y nos den
to
el paradero
make
de
justice
nuestros hijos, si están en
and
El
that we
Salvador, por
know
favor, que nos los
the
devuelvan.
whereabouts of our sons and daughters, and we ask for their return because they are not criminals.
Por eso es bueno esto que estamos haciendo el día.
That's why this is a good thing, what we are doing. So I ask for patience, and we're going to begin.
Esto tiene que tener rápidamente una solución.
This has to have
En tanto
a
el
rapid
escándalo
solution
desatado
due to the outrage
a
unleashed,
partir del hecho
starting
fue
from the fact,
obviamente noticia criminis a nivel mundial.
because it was, of course,
Pero la
worldwide,
confesión de
the
Bukele
news of the crime.
del
But
día
the
de ayer
confession of Bukele he made
permite,
yesterday
sin lugar a dudas,
allows without doubt to determine
plena prueba,
with proof,
literalmente le está
literally,
admitiendo
he's
un
admitting
hecho,
a
un hecho
fact that is punishable by law.
admitiendo
He's confessing
que efectivamente
that
cometió
effectively
delito
he committed the crime, and he's committing the crime of forced disappearance
contra nada más y nada menos
against
aproximadamente 260
approximately 260
venezolanos. Pero yo decía
Venezuelans.
en el comunicado el día de ayer
But I was saying on the statement yesterday that also
pudiera calificarse, está
he could
cometiendo el delito de
describe
trata
that
humana.
he's committing
El delito de
the
trata
crime
humana, yo lo
of
denuncio
human
así,
trafficking. I denounce it like this. Why?
porque él tiene
Because
desaparecidos,
He currently has
secuestrados en El
kidnapped
Salvador
in El Salvador
a
approximately 260 Venezuelans
a cambio de que le
in
paguen
exchange
7
for
millones de
payment
dólares.
of $7 million.
Entonces, él
So-
está haciendo un negocio
So he's doing business
con esta acción delictiva
with this
al margen de
criminal
la ley
action,
internacional, y por lo tanto se está convirtiendo
and therefore
en
he's turning
traficante de personas
in a human trafficker
de nacionalidad venezolana,
of Venezuelan nationality,
la cual él, para
to which
tenerlas en El Salvador,
him to have
él
them in
cobra al
Mexico,
gobierno de los Estados
he's
Unidos.
charging the United States government $7 million.
Pero él tiene que responder
But he has to answer
varias preguntas
different questions
ante el mundo entero.
before the whole world.
Yo lo dije y lo voy a volver a repetir.
I said it once and I will say it again.
Señor Bukele, dígame
Mr.
usted
Bukele,
qué
tell
delitos
me
han
what
cometido
crime have
estos
these
260
260
venezolanos
Venezuelans
en El Salvador
committed in El
para
Salvador
estar allí
to be
encarcelados,
there
secuestrados
in
y
prison,
detenidos.
kidnapped and detained. Secondly,
diga usted
tell me
qué abogado los asiste.
what lawyer is
Diga usted
assisting
a
them,
qué- ante cuál órgano
before
jurisdiccional,
which
ante qué
judicial
instancia
court, before which
la jurisdicción penal ordinaria de El Salvador
organization of the Salvadoran
han sido
justice
puestos a la orden.
they are being
Diga
processed.
usted cuántas veces
How
han
many
ido
times
médicos y cuál es el
has a
relato
doctor
de esos
gone
informes
to
médicos
see them, and
que
what,
han tenido
what is the medical report of our compatriots?
obviamente
Of course, obviously,
usted no va a responder nada.
you will not provide any answer because the answer you gave it yesterday
Cínica,
in the most cynical,
porque el cinismo es
because cynicism
un rasgo de las
is a trait of the people like you that suffer
narcisismo crónico,
of
egolastría,
narcissism.
es un trastorno grave de personalidad. Y obviamente
Which-
se cree que se la
And obviously you believe that you are
hoy
doing
está siendo
great,
el
but
personaje
today
más repudiado
you are
de
being
toda
the
América
most rejected
y en el
figure
mundo, porque
in America and the
estos son
world,
temas sensibles que
because these very
repercuten a
sensible
nivel global,
subjects
a nivel
that
mundial. Cómo alguien
have
se
repercussions
arrodilla,
around the
se
world. How
arrastra,
someone kneels and grovels,
no le importa absolutamente
doesn't
nada
care about anything,
colocar el gentilicio salvadoreño que tiene demasiada historia heroica.
to use the Salvadoran nationality that has a lot of history, not only with Farabundo Martí, but with many other heroes. You have stained that honor doing the actions that you're doing.
Y nosotros tenemos que denunciarla.
And
Yo
we
le
have
he
to
pedido
denounce this. I have asked
formalmente a la
formally
Fiscalía General de El Salvador que se
to the
pronuncie.
Salvadoran Attorney General to provide statements to stop being cowards, and you have to start pronouncing yourself in terms of the communication that we send. The same with
El
the
Salvador, respóndale
Supreme Court of Justice of El Salvador.
abogados que
Answer the lawyers
intentado
that have
recurso
tried
a
to,
habeas corpus,
that presented the habeas
que es un
corpus.
recurso de amparo en relación a lograr la libertad
This is a
inmediata
recourse
sin condiciones.
to-
Nosotros estamos pidiendo la
to-
libertad incondicional
to call for the
de nuestros compatriotas
unconditional release. That's what we're calling for the unconditional release of our compatriots,
de detención arbitraria. Y están
victims
todos
of
estos
kidnapping,
de violaciones
of
a
forced
derechos humanos,
disappearance. All these crimes of
tiene que ser esa
against
respuesta
human rights is not only one, and that answer has to be written,
a
transmitted
nuestra institución,
to our
parte,
institution
repito, de la Fiscalía General de El
by
Salvador
the
y la
General
Corte
Attorney
Suprema de Justicia. No
General
sean
of El Salvador and the Supreme Court of Justice. Stop
tengan
being
un mínimo de
cowards.
vergüenza.
Have a minimum of
Uno es
respect.
fiscal, uno es juez.
One is a prosecutor, one is a judge. Is to practice justice, is to
No,
face
eso no puede
justice.
seguir así.
But now they are hiding, and this cannot continue. Before the statements given by Bukele yesterday, the first ones that had to come out and condemn this were were the prosecutors of El Salvador, the judges of El Salvador, the magistrates.
Estamos ante
So what are we facing?
macro tiranía
It's a macro tyranny never before seen
en el hemisferio occidental.
in the Western Hemisphere, in the whole world.
Cobardía ya
That
llega
level
a
of
niveles
cowardice
infames.
goes to infamous
Por lo
levels.
menos hemos visto en el Estados Unidos cómo
At least in the United States, we have seen how federal judges have made their
esas
statements
deportaciones son ilegales,
saying that those deportations are illegal,
que se liberado de
that
manera inmediata.
Venezuelans must be released immediately.
Eso ha ocurrido en Estados Unidos.
That has happened in the United States.
Y no podemos comparar, vuelvo y repito,
And we cannot compare, and I say this again, the case
de las personas
of the
detenidas en
people
Venezuela
detained in
por
Venezuela
intentar magnicidio,
to try to kill
intentar asesinato serial,
authorities,
intentar el asesinato contra el ciudadano presidente de la República,
to try to kill, to assassinate the President of the Republic,
secuestrar
to blow
personas
up barracks, to
para
kidnap people,
fomentar el caos en este país
to promote chaos in this country,
la convivencia pacífica.
and
No se
implode the,
puede
the
comparar.
Pacific coexistence. This cannot be compared. And despite this, these people I mentioned are processed.
Han sido imputadas,
They've been
han sido acusadas, muchos de
found
ellos
guilty.
están en fase de
They are
juicio.
accused. They are
No
being
se puede
they are
comparar.
being
Por
trial.
tanto,
So this cannot be
quiero
compared.
de esta manera referir
So I want to refer as
que
well in this
el
manner
Ministerio Público,
that the public ministry,
tal como lo hemos venido denunciando,
as we have been
como lo
denouncing
hemos venido expresando desde el principio,
from the very beginning, that all these actions happen, we will not rest for 1 second or minute. The same as the public powers of the Venezuelan state, in a coordinated manner, as a sacred constitutional principle of cooperation between the public states. All of us and President Nicolás Maduro, the Vice President, the President of the National Assembly, we will continue working until we achieve the release of our compatriots.
Autoridad del Ministerio Público, el doctor Tarek